This human baby took dying bear cub to the hospital. What happened next was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the wooden porch of the small cottage that sat at the edge of Pine Creek Forest. Lily Morgan gently placed her 10-month-old daughter, Emma, on a colorful playmat near the open doorway. Emma's chubby fingers reached for the dangling toys above her, her innocent giggles filling the peaceful air. The cottage belonged to Lily's parents, who had offered it as a retreat for Lily to recover from her recent divorce. The quiet surroundings, away from the busy city life, seemed perfect for healing. Lily hummed softly as she hung freshly washed clothes on the line behind the cottage. The cool spring breeze carried the sweet scent of wildflowers and pine. Emma continued to play contentedly, occasionally turning her head toward the forest sounds, birds chirping and leaves rustling. The baby had always been unusually aware of her surroundings, noticing things that even adults missed. "I'll just be a minute, sweetie," Lily called out, stepping further into the backyard to retrieve more clothes from the basket. She kept glancing back at Emma, who remained safely on her mat, fascinated by a butterfly that had landed on the porch railing. Then the peaceful morning shattered with a strange sound. A weak, pained whimper came from somewhere near the front gate. Emma stopped playing, her bright blue eyes widening with curiosity. She turned her head toward the noise, her tiny body becoming still as she listened. The whimper came again, slightly louder this time, followed by a rustling in the bushes beside the gate. Emma's attention was completely captured. She pushed herself up and began crawling toward the sound, moving with surprising determination for a baby her age. The butterfly flew away, but Emma didn't notice. Something more important had caught her attention. At the edge of the property, partially hidden by the overgrown shrubbery, lay a small, trembling form. A bear cub, no more than a few months old, had collapsed just outside the wooden gate. Its dark fur was matted with blood around its hind leg, which was caught in what looked like the remains of a poacher's wire trap. Each breath the cub took seemed to require enormous effort, its small chest rising and falling in an irregular rhythm. Emma reached the edge of the porch and paused, watching the injured animal with intense focus. The cub's eyes, filled with pain and fear, met Emma's curious gaze. Something unspoken passed between the baby and the wild animal, a connection that transcended species and language. Lily was still hanging clothes, her back turned to the porch. "Almost done, Emma," she called, unaware of the drama unfolding at the front of the cottage. Emma began crawling again, moving down the porch steps with careful determination. The partially open gate presented no barrier as she made her way toward the suffering cub. The baby moved slowly, not with fear but with gentleness, as if understanding the cub's vulnerable state. The forest fell silent, as if holding its breath. Even the birds stopped their morning songs as Emma approached the wounded animal. The cub tried to move away, a faint growl escaping its throat, but it was too weak to escape. Its dark eyes watched the approaching baby with a mixture of fear and resignation. Emma reached the cub and stopped, sitting back on her diaper. Her small hand reached out, hovering inches from the cub's head. The injured animal tensed but didn't move. Then, with infinite gentleness, Emma's fingers touched the soft fur between the cub's ears. A soft baby babble escaped her lips, almost like she was trying to comfort the suffering creature. The cub's trembling seemed to lessen at the touch. Its eyes, filled with pain just moments before, showed a flicker of something else. Trust, perhaps, or at least acceptance. Emma continued to pat the cub's head, making soft cooing noises that seemed to calm both of them. It was at this moment that Connor Adams, a wildlife veterinarian who had been hiking in the nearby forest, came around the bend in the road. He stopped in his tracks, his backpack sliding off his shoulder and hitting the ground with a thud. The sight before him was beyond anything he had ever witnessed. A human baby sitting beside a wounded bear cub, touching it without fear. "Oh my God," Connor whispered, frozen in place. His training told him to rush forward, to separate the baby from the wild animal, but something held him back. The scene wasn't one of danger, but of connection. The cub wasn't threatening the baby. If anything, it seemed to be drawing comfort from the child's presence. Carefully, Connor pulled out his phone and took a picture, then dialed emergency services. "This is Dr. Connor Adams," he said urgently into the phone. "I'm on Pine Creek Road, about half a mile past the old Miller place. There's a baby, a human baby, with an injured bear cub. I need animal rescue and possibly child services." He paused, listening to the dispatcher's incredulous questions. "No, I'm not joking. Please hurry. The cub looks seriously injured and, well, you need to see this to believe it." As Connor ended the call, Lily finally came around the corner of the cottage, a clothespin still in her hand. Her scream pierced the air when she saw Emma sitting beside the wounded wild animal. "Emma! Oh my God, Emma!" Lily dropped everything and began running toward her daughter. Connor held up his hand. "Wait! Don't rush over. You might scare the cub, and even injured, it could lash out." Lily stopped, her face pale with fear. "That's my baby, with a bear." "I know," Connor said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I've called for help. I'm a wildlife vet. Let me approach them slowly." Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face, her entire body trembling with fear for her child. Connor moved forward with careful, measured steps, talking in a low, soothing voice. "Hey there, little one," he said gently, addressing both Emma and the cub. "You've made quite a friend, haven't you?" Emma looked up at him, her face breaking into a smile, but her hand remained on the cub's head. The cub's eyes were now half closed, its breathing still labored, but somewhat steadier. Connor knelt down a few feet away, assessing the situation with his professional eye. "The cub has a severe leg injury," he told Lily, who had inched closer despite her fear. "Probably from a trap. It's lost a lot of blood, but your daughter—" He shook his head in amazement. "She's somehow keeping it calm. I've never seen anything like this." The wail of sirens in the distance announced the approaching help. But as the sounds grew louder, the cub became agitated, trying weakly to move away from the noise. Emma sensed the change and did something that left both adults speechless. She leaned forward and wrapped her small arms around the cub's neck in a gentle hug, making soft shushing sounds like a parent would to comfort a frightened child. The cub stopped struggling and closed its eyes, surrendering to the baby's embrace. "This is unbelievable," Connor whispered, his professional detachment crumbling in the face of such an extraordinary display of cross-species compassion. The emergency vehicles arrived, an ambulance, a police car, and a wildlife rescue van. The professionals poured out, then stopped in their tracks at the sight before them. "We need to sedate the cub to transport it," Connor told the wildlife rescue team. "But we have to be careful. The baby seems to have formed some kind of bond with it." As they prepared the sedative, Lily finally approached her daughter, her heart pounding with fear and amazement. "Emma, sweetie, come to Mommy," she whispered, holding out her arms. But Emma refused to leave the cub's side. Each time Lily tried to pull her away, the baby would cry out and the cub would become distressed, its breathing more labored, its weak growls more frequent. "This isn't working," Connor said after the third attempt. The stress is making the cub's condition worse. He turned to the wildlife rescue team. We might need to transport them together. Together? A bear and a baby? The lead rescuer, Sarah, looked skeptical. That's against every protocol we have. Look at them, Connor said, gesturing to Emma, who was once again calmly stroking the cub's fur. The cub is critically injured. It might not survive the trip to the wildlife hospital if its stress levels spike, and right now that baby is the only thing keeping it calm. Sarah hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. The mother will have to come too, of course. Lily, still pale, but now more composed, nodded. Whatever it takes, but how will we transport them safely? The team worked quickly. The cub was given a mild sedative. Not enough to knock it out completely, but enough to ease its pain for the journey. They placed it on a special stretcher designed for small animals. Then, in a move that would later make headlines across the country, they allowed Lily to place Emma on the stretcher beside the cub. The baby immediately put her hand back on the cub's head, babbling softly. "I've been working with wildlife for 15 years, Sarah muttered, shaking her head as they carefully loaded the stretcher into the van. "Never seen anything like this in my life." Lily climbed in beside her daughter, and Connor joined them, monitoring the cub's vital signs. The police escort led the way as they began the 30-minute journey to the wildlife hospital in Pine Ridge. Inside the van, Emma remained unusually calm for a baby her age, seemingly understanding the gravity of the situation. The cub drifted in and out of consciousness, but whenever it showed signs of distress, Emma would pat its head or make soft noises that somehow seemed to reach through the animal's pain. "She's like a tiny animal whisperer," Connor said in awe, watching the baby's gentle interactions with the wounded cub. "I've seen experienced handlers who can't calm an injured wild animal this effectively." Lily watched her daughter with new eyes. "She's always been sensitive. Even as a newborn, she seemed to know when I was upset. But this..." She gestured to the extraordinary scene before them. "I never imagined this." The cub's breathing suddenly became more labored, its body tensing with pain. Connor checked its vitals, his expression grim. "We're losing it," he said urgently. "The internal injuries must be worse than I thought." Emma sensed the change. The baby's face crumpled, and she let out a distressed cry that matched the cub's pain. Then, as the adults watched in astonishment, she leaned forward and pressed her face against the cub's, her tiny hand patting its chest. Heart, Connor realized. She's feeling its heartbeat slowing down. The cub's eyes fluttered open, meeting Emma's gaze one more time. Something passed between them. Something profound that the watching adults could sense but not fully understand. The cub's breathing steadied slightly, and its body relaxed under Emma's touch. "It's fighting to stay alive," Connor whispered. "And somehow, your daughter is helping it fight." As they pulled up to the wildlife hospital, a team of veterinarians was waiting. The story of the baby and the bear cub had already spread, and cameras flashed as they carefully unloaded the stretcher. Emma remained beside the cub, refusing to be separated despite the commotion around them. Inside the treatment room, the veterinary team faced an unprecedented situation. "We need to operate immediately," the lead vet, Dr. Harrison, said after a quick examination. "But the baby can't be in the operating room." Emma, however, had other ideas. When Lily tried to lift her away from the cub, the baby began to wail. Not a normal cry, but a sound of such deep distress that it shocked everyone in the room. The cub, despite its sedation, responded to Emma's cries, its vital signs immediately deteriorating. "This is impossible, Doctor," Harrison muttered, running a hand through his hair. "I can't operate with a baby in the room, but the cub seems to crash every time they're separated. Connor stepped forward. What if we compromise? The baby and her mother could stay just outside, visible through the observation window. Maybe maintaining that visual connection would be enough. It was an unusual solution, but nothing about this situation was usual. They set up a chair for Lily by the observation window, with Emma on her lap. The baby immediately pressed her hands against the glass, her eyes fixed on the cub as the veterinary team prepared for surgery. Throughout the 2-hour operation, Emma remained focused on the cub, occasionally making soft sounds when the animal's vitals wavered on the monitors. The medical team worked frantically to repair the damaged leg and address the internal bleeding caused by the trap. "I don't understand it," Dr. Harrison said, glancing at the monitors. Twice now, the cub's heart rate has dropped dangerously low, and each time, that baby somehow seems to sense it before our monitors do. And when she makes those sounds, the cub responds, Connor finished. Its vitals stabilize. The operation finally ended. The cub had survived against tremendous odds. Its leg had been saved, though it would likely always have a limp. The internal injuries had been repaired, but the next 24 hours would be critical. As they moved the cub to the recovery area, Emma was finally allowed close again. The exhausted baby, who had remained awake and alert throughout the entire ordeal, gently touched the sleeping cub's paw. Then, as if her mission was accomplished, she curled up against her mother's chest and fell into a deep sleep. News of the extraordinary bond between the human baby and the bear cub spread rapidly. By evening, the story had gone viral, with the photo Connor had taken appearing on news sites worldwide. Reporters gathered outside the wildlife hospital, eager for updates on the unlikely pair that had captured the public's imagination. Inside, Lily sat beside the cub's recovery enclosure, holding her sleeping daughter. Connor joined her, bringing coffee and sandwiches. "You should take Emma home to rest," he said gently. "It's been an overwhelming day." Lily nodded, looking down at her peaceful child. "What happened today? It wasn't normal, was it?" Connor shook his head. "In all my years working with wildlife, I've never seen anything like it. The connection between them, the way they communicated without words, it was beyond explanation." "Will the cub survive?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thanks to your daughter, I think it has a fighting chance," Connor replied. "The next 24 hours are critical, but it's already beaten the odds once today." As they spoke, Emma stirred in her sleep, making soft noises. At the same moment, the monitors attached to the cub showed a change, its heart rate increasing slightly, its breathing becoming more regular. "There it is again," Connor said in amazement. Even in sleep, they're connected somehow. Lily looked down at her daughter with a mixture of awe and unease. "What does it mean? How is this possible?" Connor had no answers, only questions. But as he watched the sleeping baby and the wounded cub respond to each other across the distance that separated them, he knew he was witnessing something profound, something that challenged everything he thought he knew about the barriers between humans and wild animals. "Whatever it is," he said finally, "I think we should respect it. Your daughter did something today that no adult could have done. She saved a life through pure compassion." As night fell over the wildlife hospital, the baby and the bear cub slept, their extraordinary connection undiminished by the glass wall between them. And in that quiet moment, the first chapter of their remarkable story came to a close. But the most shocking developments were yet to come. Dawn broke with a gentle pink glow over Pine Ridge Wildlife Hospital. The night staff had been monitoring the injured bear cub closely, documenting every subtle change in its condition. Dr. Mia Chen, the night shift veterinarian, rubbed her tired eyes as she handed over her notes to Dr. Harrison. "The cub made it through the night," she said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Honestly, I didn't think it would. The internal injuries were severe, and the blood loss—" She shook her head. By all medical logic, this animal should not be alive. Dr. Harrison nodded as he reviewed the charts. "The resilience of wildlife never ceases to amaze me. But this case—" He trailed off, looking through the observation window at the sleeping cub. "This case defies explanation." The cub's vital signs had stabilized overnight, improving steadily hour by hour despite the trauma it had endured. The surgical site was already showing signs of healing faster than normal, but perhaps most puzzling was the cub's behavior. Even sedated, it seemed to be oriented toward the direction of the hospital entrance, as if waiting for something or someone. Lily arrived at 7:30 a.m. with Emma, who had slept fitfully through the night, waking frequently with her hands reaching out into empty air. The baby's normally sunny disposition had been replaced by a restless anxiety that only eased when Lily told her they were going back to see her bear. "How is the cub doing?" Lily asked as Connor met them at the hospital entrance. Dark circles under her eyes revealed her own sleepless night. Connor's face broke into a tired smile. "Remarkably well. Better than anyone expected. The team can't explain the rate of recovery." "And Emma knew," Lily said softly, looking down at her daughter who was now alert and squirming in her arms, trying to see past Connor into the hospital corridor. She knew all night. She kept waking up, making these sounds, like she was calling to it. Connor's scientific mind struggled with the implications of what Lily was describing. "Let's go see the cub." "We need to take it slowly, though. Despite the improvement, it's still a wild animal that's been traumatized." They walked through the corridor toward the recovery area. As they approached, something extraordinary happened. The monitoring equipment attached to the cub began to register changes: increased heart rate, heightened brain activity, a spike in respiration. The cub, still weak but now fully awake, raised its head and turned toward the door before Emma even appeared in the doorway. "That's impossible," Dr. Harrison whispered, watching the monitors. "It's like it sensed you coming." Emma began squirming more insistently in Lily's arms, making the same soft cooing sound she had made the day before. The cub responded immediately, attempting to stand in its enclosure despite its injuries. "Careful," Connor cautioned as the cub wobbled on its 3 good legs. "We don't want it to hurt itself." Dr. Harrison quickly adjusted the enclosure, lowering one side so the cub could be seen more easily while still remaining safely contained. Lily approached cautiously, holding Emma where she could see the cub. The reunion was electric. Emma's face lit up with joy, her hands reaching toward the cub. The animal moved to the edge of the enclosure, its dark eyes fixed on the baby with an intensity that made the watching adults uncomfortable. It was not a predatory gaze, but it held a focus and awareness that seemed beyond normal animal cognition. "I've worked with bear cubs before," Dr. Harrison said quietly. "This is not typical behavior. There's recognition there, genuine recognition." Connor nodded, his scientific training battling with what his eyes were telling him. "It's as if they know each other, as if they're communicating somehow." Emma babbled excitedly, a stream of baby talk that made no sense to the adults but seemed to have meaning for the cub. The animal tilted its head, listening intently to every sound, occasionally responding with soft huffs that weren't quite growls. "Can I bring her closer?" Lily asked hesitantly. Dr. Harrison hesitated. "Under normal circumstances, I'd say absolutely not. But nothing about this situation is normal. Let's compromise. You can sit in that chair by the enclosure, but keep Emma in your lap." Lily sat down, positioning Emma so she could see the cub clearly. The baby immediately reached toward the animal, her fingers stretching toward its fur. The cub extended its neck as far as possible, trying to make contact. "I think we can allow them to touch," Connor said after observing their behavior. "The cub seems calm, and Emma is clearly desperate for the connection." With extreme caution, Lily shifted forward, allowing Emma's hand to reach through the opening in the enclosure. The moment her tiny fingers touched the cub's fur, something remarkable happened. The tension visibly drained from the cub's body. It closed its eyes briefly in what looked uncannily like relief, then gently pressed its head against Emma's hand. The monitors showed immediate changes. The cub's elevated heart rate slowed to a steady, strong rhythm. Its stress hormones dropped, and its body relaxed completely. "Are you seeing this?" Dr. Harrison whispered to the team that had gathered to witness the unusual reunion. "The physiological response is immediate and profound." Connor was recording the interaction on his phone, documenting what was quickly becoming a medical and scientific anomaly. "It's like they're healing each other somehow." As they watched, Emma began to pat the cub's head in the same gentle rhythm she had used the day before. The cub's eyes drifted half-closed in contentment, its breathing synchronizing with the baby's. For nearly 20 minutes they remained connected, the room silent except for Emma's occasional happy babbles and the cub's soft huffing responses. Then Dr. Maya Patel, the hospital's senior wildlife behaviorist, burst into the room, her face flushed with excitement. "I just got your texts," she said breathlessly. "Is it true? A human baby and a bear cub?" Her eyes widened as she took in the scene before her. "Oh my God, it is true!" Dr. Patel approached slowly, her trained eyes taking in every detail of the interaction. "This is unprecedented," she murmured. "The level of trust, the lack of fear on both sides." She turned to Connor. "How did this connection form?" Connor explained the events of the previous day, how Emma had found the injured cub, how she had somehow calmed it, the extraordinary journey to the hospital, and the cub's miraculous survival of the surgery. Dr. Patel listened intently, occasionally making notes on her tablet. "I've studied animal-human bonds for 15 years, she said when Connor finished. "I've seen therapy dogs connect with autistic children. Elephants bond with their keepers. Even wolves form attachments to the humans who raised them. But I've never seen anything like this. A wild bear cub and a human infant forming in spontaneous connection. It challenges everything we think we know about interspecies relationships." As they spoke, a new development unfolded. Emma had begun making a rhythmic humming sound, almost like a lullaby without words. The cub was listening, completely still, its eyes fixed on the baby's face. Then, to the astonishment of everyone in the room, the cub began to mimic the sound. Not exactly, but a soft, rhythmic huffing that matched the cadence of Emma's humming. "They're communicating," Dr. Patel whispered, her professional composure cracking in the face of what they were witnessing. "They've developed their own language." The implications were staggering. A wild animal and a human baby, neither with developed language skills, had somehow created a form of communication that transcended the boundaries of species. "We need to document this properly," Dr. Patel said, her scientific mind reasserting itself despite her awe. "This could revolutionize our understanding of animal cognition and interspecies communication." But as the adults discussed the scientific significance of what they were witnessing, Lily noticed something that sent a chill down her spine. Emma's free hand, the one not touching the cub, was moving in a strange pattern, tracing circles in the air over and over. At the same time, the cub's uninjured front paw was making an identical circular motion against the floor of the enclosure. "Look," Lily said, pointing. "They're mirroring each other." The room fell silent as everyone observed the synchronized movements. It wasn't just the paw and hand movements. Their breathing had synchronized as well, and even their blinks seemed to occur at the same moment. "This goes beyond simple bonding," Dr. Patel said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is something I've never seen documented in any research literature." Connor felt a strange mixture of excitement and unease. As a scientist, he was witnessing something extraordinary, something that could change our understanding of animal-human connections. But as a person, he felt like he was glimpsing something almost sacred, something not meant for scientific scrutiny. The peaceful scene was interrupted by a commotion in the hallway. Raised voices approached the recovery room, and the door burst open to reveal a stern-faced man in a suit, accompanied by 2 uniformed officers and a woman carrying a tablet. "I'm Jason Westbrook from the Department of Children and Family Services," the man announced, flashing an ID badge. "We've received reports of a child being placed in danger with a wild animal. I'm here to assess the situation." Lily instinctively pulled Emma closer, breaking the physical contact with the cub. The effect was immediate. The cub let out a distressed whine, and Emma began to cry, reaching back toward her animal friend. "Please," Connor stepped forward. "You're disrupting a very delicate situation. This isn't what it looks like. A baby with a wild bear isn't dangerous." Jason's tone was skeptical, his eyes hard as he surveyed the scene. "I have multiple reports, including viral videos, showing this child in direct contact with a predator." "The cub is injured and sedated," Dr. Harrison explained, trying to diffuse the tension. "We've been monitoring the situation carefully. There's been no danger to the child." "That's not for you to determine," Jason replied coldly. "Our job is to protect children, and allowing a baby to touch a wild bear, no matter how injured, represents a serious lapse in judgment." He turned to Lily. "Ma'am, I need to speak with you privately about your daughter's welfare." Lily's face drained of color. "You think I'm endangering my child? I would never—" "Please, Ms. Morgan. This is standard procedure when we receive reports of potential endangerment." As Lily was led away for questioning, Emma's cries grew more distressed. The cub responded to her distress, becoming agitated and trying to stand despite its injuries. The monitors showed its heart rate climbing dangerously. "The cub is in distress," Dr. Harrison said urgently. "We need to calm it before it hurts itself." Dr. Patel moved quickly, adjusting the medication flowing into the cub's IV. "This should help, but it's not just physical. The separation from the baby is causing psychological distress." In the hallway, Lily could hear her daughter's cries. "Please," she begged Jason. "Emma needs me, and she needs to be with the cub. There's something special happening here, something important." "Special?" Jason's expression was skeptical. "Ms. Morgan, your child was touching a wild predator. That's not special. It's dangerous and potentially constitutes neglect." "You don't understand," Lily insisted, tears forming in her eyes. "They have a connection. Emma saved that cub's life, and somehow that cub is helping my daughter too." Jason consulted his tablet. "It says here you've recently gone through a divorce and moved to an isolated cabin in the woods. Are you under treatment for depression or other mental health issues, Ms. Morgan?" The implication was clear, and Lily felt a surge of anger through her fear. "I am a good mother. What happened yesterday was extraordinary, but I would never put Emma in danger. Ask the doctors, ask anyone who was there." Inside the recovery room, the situation was deteriorating. The cub's vitals were becoming erratic despite the medication, and Emma's cries had become almost frantic. Connor made a decision. "I need to get the baby," he told Dr. Harrison. "This separation is harmful to both of them." Before the doctor could respond, Connor strode into the hallway where Lily was being questioned. "Excuse me," he interrupted, his professional authority evident in his tone. "I'm Dr. Connor Adams, wildlife veterinarian. There's a medical situation developing that requires the baby's presence immediately." Jason looked startled. "The baby's presence? For a medical situation with a bear?" "Yes," Connor said firmly. "The cub's condition is deteriorating rapidly, and based on what we've observed, the baby's presence has a stabilizing effect. This is a unique case with significant implications for wildlife rehabilitation. I need to borrow Emma for a few minutes." Jason hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "The officers will accompany you." Lily handed Emma to Connor, who quickly carried the crying baby back to the recovery room. The moment Emma saw the cub, her cries began to subside. Connor sat down by the enclosure, positioning Emma so she could see her animal friend. "Let her touch the cub," Dr. Patel urged. "We need to stabilize its condition." Under the watchful eyes of the officers, Connor carefully allowed Emma's hand to reach through the opening. The moment her fingers touched the cub's fur, both baby and bear visibly relaxed. The cub's vital signs began to normalize almost immediately, and Emma's distressed cries faded to soft, hiccuping sobs. "Are you seeing this?" Connor asked, looking up at the officers who had followed them into the room. "This isn't just a cute animal encounter. There's something medically significant happening here." One of the officers, a woman with kind eyes, stepped closer. "That's remarkable," she admitted, watching as the cub gently nuzzled Emma's hand. "I've never seen anything like it." "None of us have," Dr. Patel said. "That's why we're documenting it carefully. This could have profound implications for understanding interspecies bonds and animal cognition." The officers exchanged glances, clearly unsure how to proceed in this unprecedented situation. Emma and the cub had settled into a peaceful connection, the baby's hand resting gently on the cub's head, both of them calm and content. Jason Westbrook entered the room, his expression shifting from skepticism to confusion as he observed the scene. "What exactly am I looking at here?" he asked, his voice softer than before. Dr. Patel stepped forward. "Mr. Westbrook, you're witnessing something unprecedented in documented animal-human interactions. This baby and this bear cub have formed a bond that defies scientific explanation. We're observing measurable physiological benefits for the injured cub when in contact with the child. And vice versa," Lily added quietly from the doorway. "Emma was restless all night, crying out. It only stopped when we came back here this morning." Jason watched as Emma babbled softly to the cub, which was now making gentle huffing sounds in response. The synchronicity of their movements was unmistakable. When Emma blinked, the cub blinked. When she tilted her head, the cub mirrored the motion. "I've been doing this job for 12 years, Jason said finally. "I've seen all kinds of situations, but nothing like this." He turned to Lily. "I'm not dismissing the potential risk here, Miss Morgan, but I'm also seeing something unusual. I'd like to consult with our department psychologist and some wildlife experts before making any determinations." Lily felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Thank you," she whispered. As the tension in the room eased, Dr. Patel continued her observations, making notes on her tablet as Emma and the cub communicated in their mysterious way. "The synchronization is deepening," she noted. "Heart rates, respiration, even their eye movements, it's like they're in perfect harmony." "What do you think is happening?" Connor asked her quietly. Dr. Patel shook her head. Scientifically, I don't have an explanation that fits within our current understanding of animal cognition or human-animal bonding. This is something new. As they spoke, Emma did something unexpected. She began to make a new sound, a soft rhythmic whimpering that none of the adults had heard from her before. The cub's ears perked up, and it responded with a similar sound. Dr. Patel's eyes widened. "They're developing vocalizations together," she whispered. "A shared language." The implications were staggering. A pre-verbal human baby and a wild animal creating a form of communication that transcended the barriers between species. It challenged the foundations of what scientists believed about language development and interspecies communication. But as fascinating as the scientific implications were, Lily was more concerned with the practical reality facing her daughter. "What happens now?" she asked, looking from Connor to the doctors to Jason. "Emma clearly needs to be with the cub, but it's a wild animal. It can't come home with us." Jason, who had been observing silently, cleared his throat. "From a child welfare perspective, I can't authorize ongoing contact with a wild predator outside of controlled conditions. However," he added, seeing Lily's face fall, "given the unusual circumstances, I won't be filing a neglect report at this time. I'll recommend close monitoring of the situation instead. The cub will need to remain here for at least 2 weeks," Dr. Harrison said. "Its injuries, while healing remarkably well, still require medical attention." "And after that?" Lily asked. The question hung in the air. No one had an answer. The standard protocol would be to rehabilitate the cub and release it back into the wild once it was healthy enough. But the unprecedented bond with Emma complicated matters tremendously. "We don't have to decide everything right now," Connor said gently. "Let's take it one day at a time." As they discussed the uncertain future, none of them noticed the subtle change in Emma's behavior. The baby had grown very still, her eyes fixed on the cub with unusual intensity. The cub returned her gaze with equal focus. Then, Emma did something that sent a chill through everyone in the room. She raised her hand, the one not touching the cub, and pressed it against her injured leg, exactly where the cub's wound was located. And as she did so, she made a soft whimpering sound that mirrored perfectly the pained noises the cub had made the day before. "Oh my God," Lily whispered, watching her daughter. It's like she's feeling the cub's pain." Dr. Patel moved closer, her scientific curiosity overcoming her shock. "Emma," she said softly, "can you show me where it hurts?" Emma didn't respond to the doctor's words. At 10 months old, she couldn't possibly understand the question. And yet, her tiny hand moved from her leg to her side, pressing against her ribs where the cub had sustained internal injuries. "This is impossible," Dr. Harrison breathed. "She can't possibly know where the internal injuries are." But the evidence was before their eyes. Emma was somehow mapping the cub's injuries onto her own body, as if she could feel them directly. The cub watched her intently, then raised its uninjured paw and placed it on Emma's leg, mirroring her gesture. "Empathic mirroring," Dr. Patel suggested, her voice unsteady. "But at a level I've never seen documented. It's as if they're sharing sensations somehow." The room fell silent as the implications of what they were witnessing sank in. This went beyond bonding, beyond communication. It suggested a level of connection between human and animal that science had never documented, perhaps had never even imagined possible. Lily felt a mixture of wonder and fear as she watched her daughter. What did this mean for Emma's future? How would this extraordinary connection shape her development? And most pressingly, what would happen when the time came to separate them? As if sensing her mother's thoughts, Emma turned to look at Lily. For a moment, Lily saw something in her daughter's eyes that took her breath away. A depth of awareness that seemed beyond her 10 months. A wisdom that didn't belong in a baby's gaze. Then Emma smiled, her familiar, innocent smile, and turned back to the cub. Outside the hospital, unnoticed by those inside the recovery room, a crowd had gathered. News vans lined the street, reporters clutching microphones as they prepared for live broadcasts. The story of the baby and the bear had captured the public's imagination, spreading across social media with hashtags like, Baby Bear Whisperer and Miracle Bond. Among the crowd stood a tall man with piercing eyes and a weathered face. Marcus Blackwood, renowned animal behaviorist and controversial figure in wildlife conservation, watched the hospital entrance with intense interest. He had flown in from Alaska the moment he saw the viral video of Emma and the cub. Fascinating, he murmured to himself. After all these years, could this be proof? He turned to his assistant. Get me inside that hospital. I need to see this child and the cub for myself. What Marcus Blackwood knew, what he had been studying in secret for decades, could explain the extraordinary bond forming between Emma and the bear cub. But his knowledge, if revealed, would forever change the lives of everyone involved, and perhaps our understanding of the natural world itself. Marcus Blackwood's reputation preceded him. At 62, with his silver-streaked black hair and penetrating gray eyes, he cut an imposing figure as he strode through the hospital doors. His credentials: Professor Emeritus at the University of Alaska, author of 12 books on wildlife behavior, consultant to wildlife preserves across 5 continents, opened doors that would remain closed to others. Within minutes of his arrival, he was being escorted to the recovery room where Emma and the bear cub continued their remarkable connection. Dr. Blackwood, Connor said, extending his hand as the renowned scientist entered. This is unexpected. I've read all your work on predator cognition. Dr. Adams, Marcus acknowledged with a brief handshake. His attention was already fixed on the scene before him. The human baby sitting in her mother's lap beside the cub's enclosure, one small hand extended through the opening to touch the animal's fur. Remarkable, he murmured. Truly remarkable. Dr. Patel approached, her expression a mixture of professional respect and wariness. Marcus Blackwood's brilliance was undeniable, but his controversial theories about animal consciousness and interspecies communication had made him something of an outcast in certain scientific circles. Dr. Blackwood, I'm Maya Patel, behavioral specialist here at Pine Ridge. Your paper on affective mirroring in captive wolf packs was excellent, Marcus replied, without taking his eyes off Emma and the cub. But this transcends anything in the current literature, doesn't it? We're still gathering data, Doctor, Patel said cautiously. The connection is unprecedented, but we're hesitant to draw conclusions without more observation. Marcus smiled thinly. Scientists, always so careful. He moved closer to Emma and the cub, crouching down to observe their interaction at eye level. How long has this bond been in place? Just over 24 hours, Connor answered. Emma found the injured cub yesterday morning. 24 hours, Marcus repeated softly, and already this level of synchronization. He watched as Emma and the cub blinked in unison, their breathing falling into perfect rhythm. Extraordinary. Lily clutched Emma protectively, uncomfortable with the intensity of Marcus's scrutiny. Excuse me, but who exactly are you? And why are you so interested in my daughter? Marcus straightened, seeming to notice Lily for the first time. My apologies, Miss Morgan, Lily Morgan. Miss Morgan, I'm Dr. Marcus Blackwood. I've spent 40 years studying extraordinary connections between humans and wildlife. He paused, his eyes returning to Emma. But I've never seen anything quite like this. Your daughter is special. The way he said special sent a chill down Lily's spine. What do you mean by that? Before Marcus could answer, Emma made a series of soft, rhythmic sounds. Not quite words, but not her usual baby babble either. The cub responded immediately with matching vocalizations. Marcus's eyes widened. How long have they been doing that? The synchronized vocalizations. It started this morning, Doctor, Patel replied. It seems to be a form of communication they've developed between themselves. Marcus pulled a small recorder from his pocket. May I? Without waiting for permission, he began recording the exchange between Emma and the cub. His expression was one of barely contained excitement. This confirms it, he murmured. After all these years. Confirms what, exactly? Connor asked, increasingly uneasy with Marcus's behavior. Marcus seemed to catch himself. A theory I've been developing. Nothing conclusive yet. He put away the recorder and straightened his jacket. I'd like to propose something. I have a research facility in northern Montana, a sanctuary of sorts for studying wildlife rehabilitation and behavior. I'd like to invite you all to continue this observation there, where we can document this extraordinary connection away from media scrutiny and institutional constraints. Move Emma and the cub to Montana? Lily's voice rose in disbelief. That's absurd. Emma is a baby, not a research subject, and we live here in Pine Creek. Miss Morgan, Marcus said softly, what's happening between your daughter and this bear cub is unique, possibly one of the most significant interspecies connections ever documented. At my facility, we could provide optimal conditions for both of them, while learning from this extraordinary bond. The cub needs specialized medical care, Dr. Harrison interjected. We can't transport it across the state lines in its condition. Marcus waved a dismissive hand. My facility has state-of-the-art medical equipment and staff. Better than what you have here, I assure you. Lily stood up, holding Emma securely in her arms, despite the baby's protests at being separated from the cub. We're not going anywhere. Emma may have a special connection with this cub, but she's my daughter, not a scientific curiosity. Marcus's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. Of course. I understand your concerns. Perhaps we could discuss this further after you've had time to consider the options. He handed Lily a business card. My contact information. Please think about what I've said. This opportunity is unprecedented. As Marcus turned to leave, he paused by the cub's enclosure, studying the animal with intense focus. The cub met his gaze without fear, its dark eyes reflecting intelligence that seemed beyond its young age. Something passed between them. A moment of recognition that made Connor's skin prickle with unease. Fascinating, Marcus murmured. Absolutely fascinating. With a final nod to the group, he departed, leaving behind a tension that hadn't been there before. I don't trust him, Lily said the moment he was out of earshot. There's something off about the way he looks at Emma. Connor nodded slowly. Marcus Blackwood is brilliant, no question, but he's also known for pushing boundaries. Some of his research methods have been questioned by the scientific community. What kind of methods? Lily asked sharply. Connor hesitated. Nothing unethical, exactly, just unconventional. He believes in a deeper connection between humans and animals than most scientists are comfortable acknowledging. He calls it cross-species consciousness. The idea that humans and animals can share thoughts, emotions, even sensations under certain conditions. Like Emma feeling the cub's pain, Dr. Patel said softly, like what we witnessed earlier. A heavy silence fell over the room as they considered the implications. Emma, oblivious to the adult's concerns, was straining to return to the cub, her small hands reaching toward the enclosure. "I should get her home," Lily said finally. "It's been an overwhelming day and she needs rest." "What about the cub?" Connor asked. "The separation seems to cause distress for both of them." Dr. Harrison, who had been reviewing the cub's latest test results, looked up. "The cub is stable for now. Its vitals are stronger than we would expect after such trauma. I think we can risk a short separation, especially if Emma will return tomorrow." Lily nodded, relieved. "We'll come back first thing in the morning, I promise." As they prepared to leave, Emma became increasingly agitated, twisting in Lily's arms to keep the cub in sight. The cub, too, showed signs of distress, pacing the small enclosure despite its injuries. "Wait," Dr. Patel said suddenly. "I have an idea." She hurried from the room, returning moments later with a small stuffed bear from the hospital gift shop. It's not the same, of course, but it might help Emma with the separation. Lily took the stuffed toy gratefully and held it near the cub for a few moments, allowing the animal's scent to transfer to the plush fur. Then she gave it to Emma, who clutched it tightly, her distress easing somewhat. "And for the cub?" Dr. Patel hesitated, then asked, "Do you have something of Emma's?" "Something with her scent?" Lily rummaged in the diaper bag and produced Emma's favorite blanket, a soft yellow cloth that the baby carried everywhere. "Will this work?" Dr. Patel nodded, taking the blanket and carefully placing it in the cub's enclosure. The reaction was immediate. The cub pulled the blanket close, burying its nose in the fabric. Its agitation visibly decreased as it inhaled Emma's familiar scent. "Incredible," Connor murmured. "The comfort goes both ways." With a final glance at the cub, now curled around Emma's blanket, Lily carried her daughter from the hospital. The separation was difficult, but the stuffed bear seemed to provide some comfort, as Emma hugged it tightly all the way to the car. Outside, the media presence had grown. News vans lined the street, and reporters surged forward as Lily emerged with Emma. "Ms. Morgan, is it true your baby communicated with the bear cub? How did your daughter find the injured animal? What do the doctors say about this unusual bond?" Connor stepped in, shielding Lily and Emma from the cameras. "No comments at this time. Please respect their privacy." He guided them to Lily's car, helping them navigate through the crowd of journalists. "This is overwhelming," Lily murmured as she buckled Emma into her car seat. "I didn't expect all this attention." "The video of Emma with the cub has gone viral," Connor explained. "Over 2 million views already. People are fascinated by their connection." Lily sighed, looking at her daughter, who was now calmly stroking the stuffed bear's fur in the same gentle rhythm she had used with the real cub. "What have we gotten ourselves into, Connor?" "Something extraordinary," he replied simply. "Something beyond our understanding. But we'll figure it out together, I promise." As Lily drove away from the hospital, neither she nor Connor noticed the black SUV that pulled out to follow them at a discreet distance. Inside, Marcus Blackwood sat in the passenger seat, his eyes fixed on Lily's car. "Follow them," he instructed his driver. "I want to know where they live." His assistant, a young woman named Elise, looked up from her tablet. "The preliminary analysis of the vocalizations is complete, Doctor. Blackwood. The pattern matches what we documented in the Yukon case 3 years ago." Marcus's expression darkened. "The Yukon case ended before we could complete our research. This time will be different." He stared out the window at the forested landscape passing by. This time, we'll have all the evidence we need. Back at the wildlife hospital, the bear cub slept peacefully, Emma's yellow blanket clutched between its paws. In the observation room, Dr. Patel and Dr. Harrison reviewed the day's data, their excitement tempered by the strange new tension Marcus Blackwood's visit had introduced. "I've never seen anything like the connection between that baby and the cub," Dr. Harrison admitted. "It defies everything I know about wildlife behavior." Dr. Patel nodded slowly. "The synchronization of their physiological responses alone is groundbreaking. Heart rates, respiration, even brainwave patterns from what we could measure. It's as if they're operating as a single organism sometimes." "Do you think Blackwood is right about cross-species consciousness?" Dr. Patel hesitated. "A week ago, I would have dismissed it as fringe science, but after what I've witnessed today—" She shook her head. "I don't know anymore. Something extraordinary is happening between that child and that cub, something science hasn't explained yet." As they spoke, neither noticed the subtle change in the cub's monitoring equipment. For just a moment, the brainwave pattern displayed a spike of activity that matched no known ursine neurological response. It was a pattern more commonly associated with human dreaming. Complex, organized, almost linguistic in its structure. Then it was gone, the monitors returning to normal as the cub shifted in its sleep, its nose still buried in Emma's blanket, dreaming whatever dreams young bears dream, or perhaps something else entirely. Lily's cottage seemed unnaturally quiet that evening. After the intensity and chaos of the hospital, the peaceful forest setting felt almost too still. Emma was restless, refusing her dinner and squirming during her bath. The stuffed bear never left her grip, even when it got soaked with bath water. "It's okay, sweetie," Lily murmured as she dried her daughter off. "We'll go see your friend again tomorrow." As she spoke the words, Lily felt a strange mixture of emotions. Part of her was still stunned by the extraordinary bond that had formed between her daughter and a wild animal. Another part was afraid, not of the cub itself, but of the complications this connection was bringing into their lives. The media attention, Marcus Blackwood's unsettling interest, the involvement of child services. What had begun as a simple act of compassion was growing into something far more complex. After finally getting Emma to sleep, the stuffed bear clutched tightly in her arms. Lily sat on the porch of the cottage, a cup of tea growing cold beside her as she stared into the darkening forest. The events of the past 2 days played through her mind in an endless loop, each replay revealing new questions, new concerns. A car approaching pulled her from her thoughts. Connor's familiar vehicle appeared on the winding driveway, its headlights cutting through the twilight. He parked and approached the porch, his expression serious. "I hope you don't mind me dropping by," he said. "I wanted to check on you and Emma." Lily gestured to the chair beside her. "I'm glad for the company, actually. It's been a lot to process." Connor sat down, his trained eye scanning the forest edge automatically for wildlife. "How's Emma doing with the separation?" "Restless, clingy with the stuffed bear." Lily sighed. "Connor, what's happening? How is this connection between Emma and the cub even possible?" Connor was silent for a long moment. "Honestly, I don't know. In all my years, working with wildlife, I've never seen anything like it. There are documented cases of bonds forming between humans and animals, of course, particularly when the human raises the animal from birth. But this spontaneous connection, this level of synchronization and communication after just 1 day of contact—" He shook his head. "It's beyond my expertise. Do you think Marcus Blackwood knows something we don't? About what's happening? Maybe." Connor's expression grew troubled. Blackwood has spent his career studying unusual human-animal interactions. There are rumors in the scientific community about his research, cases he's documented that were never published in peer-reviewed journals, stories of extraordinary connections that mainstream science rejected as anecdotal or misinterpreted. What kind of connections? Connor hesitated. A woman in Alaska who could supposedly predict the migration paths of wolf packs with perfect accuracy. A man in Siberia who survived 3 days in sub-zero temperatures by sharing body heat with a wild tiger. A child in the Amazon who was found living alongside a family of capybaras, communicating with them through sounds no linguist could decode. He shrugged. Most scientists dismiss these as exaggerations or hoaxes. Blackwood believes they're examples of what he calls interspecies resonance, a rare but real phenomenon where the barriers between human and animal consciousness become permeable. "And you think that's what's happening with Emma and the cub?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what to think," Connor admitted. "But I know what I've seen, the way they mirror each other's movements, the way Emma seemed to feel the cub's injuries, the synchronization of their physiological responses. Something extraordinary is happening, something beyond our current scientific understanding." A twig snapped in the forest, making both of them jump. For a moment, the friendly woods seemed full of watching eyes and shifting shadows. "There's something else," Connor said quietly, "something that's been bothering me. The trap that injured the cub, it wasn't standard issue, not something hunters or even poachers typically use. It was specialized equipment, designed for capturing small predators alive and with minimal damage." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying someone may have been trying to catch that cub specifically, and the trap was set close to your property, Lily. Almost as if they knew the cub would be here," Lily finished, a chill running down her spine. "But that's impossible. We've only been at the cottage for 2 weeks." Connor nodded slowly. "Probably just a coincidence. But with everything else that's happened, I can't help questioning every detail." They fell into silence, both staring out at the darkening forest. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called, its haunting cry echoing through the trees. "I should check on Emma," Lily said finally, rising from her chair. Connor stood as well. "I'll come back tomorrow morning to drive you both to the hospital, if that's all right. Given all the media attention, it might be easier than going alone." "Thank you," Lily said simply, "for everything." After Connor left, Lily locked all the doors and windows, something she hadn't felt the need to do since arriving at the peaceful cottage. Then she checked on Emma, who was sleeping soundly, the stuffed bear still clutched in her small arms. As Lily watched her daughter sleep, a strange thought crept into her mind. What if the connection between Emma and the cub wasn't random? What if, somehow, they had been drawn to each other? The idea was irrational, unscientific, and yet it persisted, a whisper of possibility in the quiet night. She leaned down and kissed Emma's forehead gently. "What secrets are you keeping, my love?" she whispered. "What do you see that the rest of us can't?" Emma shifted in her sleep, a small smile curving her lips as if responding to a pleasant dream. Or perhaps, Lily thought with a mixture of wonder and unease, responding to something else entirely. Something connected to a small bear cub sleeping miles away in a wildlife hospital, wrapped around a yellow blanket that smelled of baby powder and innocence. Unbeknownst to Lily, at that exact moment, the cub at the hospital opened its eyes, staring at nothing, or perhaps at something only it could see. Dr. Patel, who happened to be checking its vitals, froze as the cub made a soft, melodic sound. the same humming noise Emma had made earlier that day. Then, as if responding to an unheard voice, the cub closed its eyes and returned to sleep, leaving the bewildered doctor to wonder what had just happened. And deeper in the forest surrounding Lily's cottage, hidden in the shadows of ancient pines, something moved. Something large and deliberate, its heavy paws making no sound on the forest floor despite its size. It paused, lifting its massive head to scent the air, then continued its slow, purposeful journey toward the cottage where a baby slept, dreaming of a bear cub who had somehow become her friend. The adult female bear, her dark eyes reflecting intelligence and purpose beyond normal animal cognition, was coming to find her cub. And nothing, not hospitals, not humans, not distance, would stop her. Dawn had barely broken when Lily was jolted awake by Emma's cries. Not the normal morning fussing of a hungry baby, but distressed, almost panicked sounds that sent Lily running to the nursery. Emma was sitting up in her crib, the stuffed bear clutched tightly to her chest, her face red with crying. But what struck Lily was her daughter's posture. She was leaning forward, her free hand stretched out toward the window, fingers splayed as if reaching for something beyond the glass. "What is it, sweetie?" Lily asked, lifting Emma into her arms. "What's wrong?" Emma continued to reach toward the window, her cries taking on an insistent, almost demanding quality. Lily carried her to the window, pulling back the curtain to reveal the misty forest outside. The early morning fog drifted between the trees, creating ghostly shapes that shifted and dissolved in the pale light. "See, nothing's there," Lily said soothingly. "Just the trees and the fog." But Emma wasn't comforted. She squirmed in Lily's arms, still reaching toward the forest, her cries changing to the strange, rhythmic sounds she had made with the cub. Lily felt a prickle of unease run down her spine. "Emma, what do you see?" she whispered, peering more intently into the fog-shrouded woods. For a moment, Lily thought she glimpsed movement among the trees, something large and dark shifting in the mist. Then it was gone, leaving her to wonder if it had been a trick of the light or her own imagination, fueled by Connor's concerns the night before. A knock at the front door made her jump. Emma immediately stopped crying, her head turning toward the sound. "That must be Connor," Lily murmured, carrying Emma with her to answer the door. But as she reached for the handle, she hesitated. "Who is it?" she called through the closed door. "It's me," Connor's familiar voice replied. "Sorry for the early hour, but I thought you might want to get to the hospital before the media crowd builds up again." Relieved, Lily opened the door. Connor stood on the porch, 2 takeaway coffee cups in his hands, but his friendly smile faded as he took in Lily's tense expression and Emma's tear-stained face. "Everything okay?" he asked, stepping inside. "Emma woke up crying," Lily explained, taking one of the coffee cups gratefully. She kept pointing at the forest, like she saw something out there. Connor frowned, moving to the window to look out at the misty woods. "Did you see anything?" "Just shadows and fog. Maybe a deer." Lily took a sip of coffee, trying to calm her nerves. "I'm being paranoid, right? After everything that's happened, I'm seeing threats everywhere." Connor didn't answer immediately, his eyes scanning the tree line with professional attention. "Probably nothing," he said finally, though his tone lacked conviction. "Let's get ready to head to the hospital. The cub was doing well when I left last night, but I know the staff is eager to observe more interactions between it and Emma." As they prepared to leave, Emma's mood improved dramatically. She seemed to understand they were going to see the cub, her earlier distress replaced by eager babbling and smiles. She still clutched the stuffed bear, occasionally pressing her face against its fur as if seeking the scent of her real animal friend. Connor insisted on checking around the cottage before they departed, walking the perimeter with careful attention. "Just being thorough," he said when he returned, but Lily noticed the slight tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes continued to scan their surroundings as they walked to his car. "Did you find something?" she asked as they drove away from the cottage, Emma secured in her car seat in the back. Connor hesitated. "Probably nothing," he said again. But there were some tracks in the soft ground near the back of the cottage. Large tracks. "What kind of animal?" "Bear," Connor said quietly. "Adult bear." The word hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Lily twisted in her seat to look at Emma, who was contentedly playing with the stuffed bear, oblivious to the adult's concern. "You don't think," Lily began, then stopped, the idea too bizarre to voice. But Connor seemed to follow her unspoken thought. "The cub's mother, coming to look for her baby? It's possible. Bears have strong maternal instincts and their sense of smell is incredible. But to track the cub all the way to your cottage after it had been taken to the hospital." He shook his head. "That would be unusual behavior, even for a mother bear." They fell silent as the car wound its way through the forest toward Pine Ridge. Emma began to make the now familiar humming sound in the back seat, a gentle, rhythmic noise that was neither quite human nor quite animal. At the hospital, they found the situation had changed overnight. The media presence had doubled, with news vans from national networks now parked alongside the local stations. A police officer stood at the entrance controlling access to the building. "What's going on?" Lily asked as they approached. "The story has exploded," Connor explained. "It's not just local news anymore. The video of Emma and the cub has been featured on morning shows across the country. People are fascinated by their connection." The officer recognized Connor and waved them through after checking their IDs. Inside, the hospital buzzed with activity. Dr. Patel met them in the lobby, her expression a mixture of excitement and concern. "Something happened last night," she said without preamble, leading them toward the recovery room. "Around 3 a.m., the cub woke up and began making those vocalizations, the ones that match Emma's. It was agitated, pacing its enclosure despite the sedation and its injuries. That's when Emma woke up crying," Lily realized. 3 a.m. She was reaching toward the window, toward the forest. Dr. Patel's eyes widened. "The synchronization continues even at a distance," she murmured. "Fascinating." She pushed open the door to the recovery room. "But that's not all. Look." The cub was awake, sitting upright in its enclosure despite its injured leg. The moment Emma entered the room, the cub's entire demeanor changed. It made a soft huffing sound that was almost a greeting, its dark eyes fixed on the baby with unmistakable recognition. Emma squirmed in Lily's arms, reaching toward the cub with matching intensity. The stuffed bear fell forgotten to the floor as the real connection re-established itself. As Lily carried Emma closer, both child and cub began to make the same rhythmic sounds, a duet of interspecies communication that sent shivers down the spines of everyone in the room. "They're talking to each other," Dr. Harrison said softly from where he stood by the monitors. "I know how that sounds, but watch them. Listen to them. They're sharing information somehow." Emma was placed in the chair beside the enclosure, and immediately her hand reached through the opening to touch the cub's fur. The moment they made contact, both baby and bear visibly relaxed, their breathing falling into perfect synchronization. "The cub's vitals stabilize immediately upon contact," Dr. Harrison noted, pointing to the monitors. "Blood pressure, heart rate, stress hormones, all normalize within seconds." Dr. Patel was recording the interaction, making notes on her tablet. "The vocalizations follow a consistent pattern," There's structure there, syntax even. It's not random babbling. Could Emma be mimicking the cub's natural sounds? Connor asked. Bears have a complex vocal communication system. It's more than mimicry, Dr. Patel replied. Watch. As they observed, Emma made a series of soft sounds, her hand gently patting the cub's head. The cub responded with similar sounds, then turned its head to look directly at a water dish in the corner of the enclosure. Emma followed its gaze, then looked back at the adults and pointed to the dish, making a different sound. She's translating, Lily whispered in disbelief. That's impossible. She doesn't even speak human language yet. Dr. Harrison approached with the water dish. The cub drank eagerly, confirming the apparent request. When it finished, it made another sound, and Emma immediately looked toward the door of the room, her expression expectant. "What is it, Emma?" Lily asked, following her daughter's gaze. "What are you looking for?" Before anyone could speculate, the door opened and Marcus Blackwood entered, followed by his assistant Elise and two men carrying scientific equipment. His timing was so perfect, so aligned with Emma and the cub's behavior, that everyone in the room froze in momentary shock. "Good morning," Marcus said smoothly. "I hope you don't mind my returning. After yesterday's observations, I couldn't stay away." His eyes moved to Emma and the cub, taking in their connected posture. "Ah, they've re-established contact. Excellent." "Dr. Blackwood," Connor began, a note of warning in his voice. "We didn't authorize. No need for formalities, Doctor." "Adams," Marcus interrupted. "We're all scientists here, pursuing the same goal, understanding this extraordinary connection." He gestured to his assistants, who began setting up their equipment. "I've brought some specialized monitoring devices that might help us document the neural aspects of their communication." Dr. Patel stepped forward. "As fascinating as that sounds, Dr. Blackwood, we can't allow unauthorized equipment or personnel in this recovery room. The cub is still in a delicate state, and Emma is a minor whose mother would need to consent to any additional monitoring." Marcus's smile never wavered, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Of course, my enthusiasm got the better of me." He turned to Lily. "Miss Morgan, I apologize for the presumption. Would you be open to discussing the possibility of additional non-invasive monitoring? What's happening between your daughter and this cub could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies communication." Before Lily could respond, Emma made a sharp, distressed sound. The cub responded immediately, growing agitated in its enclosure. Both of them were looking at Marcus, or, more specifically, at something he was carrying. Connor followed their gaze to a small device partially visible in Marcus's pocket. It resembled a remote control or a specialized sensor. "What is that?" Connor asked, pointing to the device. Marcus's hand moved to cover it. "Just a specialized recorder for documenting vocalizations at frequencies beyond normal human hearing." But Emma was now clearly upset, pulling her hand away from the cub and turning to bury her face against Lily's shoulder. The cub, too, had retreated to the far corner of its enclosure, watching Marcus with unmistakable wariness. "They're afraid," Lily realized aloud. "Both of them. Of you, or of that device?" Marcus's expression darkened. "That's a rather dramatic interpretation of normal caution in young animals and children when confronted with a stranger." But the evidence was clear to everyone in the room. The peaceful, connected state that Emma and the cub had maintained had been shattered by Marcus's arrival, or by whatever he carried with him. "I think it would be best if you left, Dr. Blackwood," Connor said firmly. "The cub's welfare is our priority, and your presence is clearly causing distress." For a moment, Tension crackled in the air as Marcus seemed to consider his options. Then his posture relaxed, and the charming smile returned to his face. Of course. The last thing I want is to cause any distress. He gathered his equipment and headed toward the door, pausing to look back at Emma and the cub. We'll speak again soon, I'm sure. This connection between them. It's just the beginning. There's so much more to discover. The door closed behind him, but the unease he left behind lingered in the room. Emma refused to reach back into the cub's enclosure, clinging to Lily instead. The cub remained in the corner, its earlier contentment replaced by watchful alertness. What just happened? Dr. Harrison asked, looking from the door to the distressed pair. Why did they react that way to Blackwood? I don't know, Connor admitted, but their reaction was unmistakable. Something about him, or something he was carrying, frightened them both. Dr. Patel was checking the cub's vitals on the monitor. Elevated heart rate, increased cortisol levels, classic stress response. Whatever triggered it, the effect was real and measurable. Lily held Emma close, stroking her hair soothingly. It's okay, sweetheart. He's gone now. To the others, she added, I don't want him near Emma again. There's something not right about him, about his interest in them. Connor nodded in agreement. I'll speak to hospital security, make sure they know he's not authorized to enter this area. As the adults discussed the situation, Emma gradually calmed. She turned her head to look at the cub, which was still watching the door warily. They exchanged a long look, and then, simultaneously, both relaxed. The cub moved away from the corner, approaching the front of the enclosure again, and Emma reached out her hand once more. They're communicating again, Dr. Patel observed, reassuring each other that the threat is gone. The thought that a 10-month-old baby and a bear cub could identify a common threat and communicate about it was astonishing. Yet the evidence was right before their eyes. Something profound was happening between Emma and the cub, something that went beyond normal human-animal interaction. As their connection re-established, Emma made a new sound, a soft, insistent noise, followed by a gesture toward the window. The cub responded with a similar vocalization, its attention also turning toward the forest visible beyond the glass. What are they trying to tell us? Lily wondered aloud. I don't know, Connor replied, moving to the window to scan the tree line. But I think we should pay attention. Outside, the forest stretched toward the horizon, peaceful in the morning light. Yet, as Connor watched, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there, watching, waiting, something connected to the extraordinary bond forming between a human baby and a bear cub, a bond that was becoming more profound, more inexplicable with each passing hour. And somewhere in that forest, moving with purpose toward the hospital, a mother bear followed an invisible thread that connected her to her cub, and now, somehow, to a human child who had entered their world in ways no one could yet understand. Dr. Maya Patel couldn't sleep. The clock on her bedside table read 2:17 a.m., but her mind refused to quiet, filled with images from the day. Emma's tiny hand touching the bear cub's fur, their synchronized movements, their strange vocalizations that seemed to carry meaning beyond anyone's understanding. After tossing and turning for another 20 minutes, she gave up and reached for her laptop. The video footage she had recorded of Emma and the cub played silently on her screen. She had watched it countless times already, making notes, looking for patterns, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. But tonight, she tried something different. She played the audio separately, isolating the vocalizations that Emma and the cub exchanged, and ran them through a specialized program that visualized sound frequencies. What emerged made her sit up straight, sleep forgotten entirely. The patterns were unmistakable. The sounds Emma and the cub made weren't random babbling. They had structure, repetition, variation. Key elements appeared over and over in different combinations, like words, or something very much like words. "That's impossible," she whispered to the empty room. But the evidence was right there on her screen. Somehow, a human baby and a bear cub had developed a rudimentary shared language in less than 48 hours. Her phone rang, startling her. The hospital's number flashed on the screen. "Dr. Patel," she answered, a sense of foreboding already growing. "It's Harrison," came the urgent voice of her colleague. "You need to get back here. Now, something's happening with the cub." "Is it in distress? Has its condition worsened?" "No, nothing like that. It's—" Harrison paused, and she could hear the struggle in his voice. A scientist confronted with something beyond scientific explanation. "It's drawing." "Drawing? What do you mean, drawing? Just get here, please. You need to see this for yourself." 20 minutes later, Maya rushed through the hospital doors, her hair hastily pulled back, wearing the same clothes she had worn the day before. Harrison met her in the lobby, his face pale with exhaustion and confusion. "It started about an hour ago," he explained as they walked rapidly toward the recovery room. "The cub woke up and became agitated. We thought it might be in pain, so I went to check on it. That's when I saw—" He shook his head. "Just look." The recovery room was dimly lit, a single lamp illuminating the cub's enclosure. Inside, the young bear was awake, sitting upright despite its injured leg. But what made Maya stop in her tracks was what the cub was doing. Using its uninjured front paw, it was methodically dragging its claws through the soft bedding material, creating patterns in the surface. Not random scratches. Deliberate, structured patterns. Circles, lines, more complex shapes arranged in a sequence that covered nearly the entire floor of the enclosure. "How long has it been doing this?" Maya whispered, moving closer to get a better view. "Almost continuously for the past hour," Harrison replied. "It stops occasionally, seems to study what it's created, then continues. I've never seen anything like it in all my years working with wildlife." Maya pulled out her phone and began recording. "The precision is remarkable," she noted. "There's intentionality here, purpose." As they watched, the cub paused, looking up at them with those intelligent, dark eyes. Then it deliberately placed its paw on one of the shapes it had created, a circle with radiating lines around it, like a crude sun. It made a soft vocalization, the same rhythmic sound it exchanged with Emma. It's trying to communicate, Maya realized, through visual representation, not just sound. Harrison ran a hand through his disheveled hair. Bears don't do this. They don't create symbolic representations. Their cognition doesn't work that way. "Apparently, this one does," Maya replied, unable to keep the excitement from her voice despite the implications. "We need to document everything, and we need to contact Lily Morgan. If the cub is attempting this level of communication, Emma needs to be here." "At 3 a.m? Trust me, if what I've observed holds true, Emma is probably already awake. The synchronization between them doesn't seem limited by distance." Harrison made the call while Maya continued to record the cub's behavior. Her scientific mind raced with questions, theories, possibilities. If a bear cub could spontaneously develop the concept of symbolic representation, something typically reserved for humans and a few highly intelligent species like apes and dolphins, what did that mean for our understanding of animal cognition? And what role did Emma play in this extraordinary development? The cub continued its work, adding new elements to its creation. A smaller circle appeared beside the sun-like shape. Then a third, even smaller circle. The cub connected them with lines, creating a structure that looked disturbingly like a simple diagram or map. "Lily's on her way," Harrison said as he returned. "She said Emma woke up about an hour ago, unusually alert and making those sounds again." He gestured to the cub's drawing. "Any idea what it's trying to show us?" Maya shook her head. "Not yet, but it's clearly representational, not just decorative. The cub is trying to communicate something specific." "Something it learned from Emma?" "Or something they both know," Maya suggested. "Something they're experiencing together through this connection we don't understand." They fell silent, watching as the cub added more details to its creation. The precision of its movements was unnerving. This wasn't the random play of a young animal, but the deliberate action of a mind with intent and purpose. 30 minutes later, Lily arrived with Emma, Connor following close behind. The baby was wide awake despite the hour, her blue eyes alert, focused. The moment she entered the room, the cub looked up, making a soft huffing sound that seemed like recognition, even greeting. "Emma's been drawing too," Lily said without preamble, pulling a crumpled paper from her pocket. "She's never shown any interest in crayons before, but tonight she was desperate for them, crying until I gave her paper and colors." She unfolded the paper to reveal a child's drawing, crude circles, and lines that a typical 10-month-old shouldn't have been capable of creating. But what made everyone in the room catch their breath was the unmistakable similarity to the patterns the cub had created in its bedding. "They're the same," Connor whispered, looking from the paper to the cub's enclosure. "Different mediums, different appendages, but the same composition." Emma squirmed in Lily's arms, reaching toward the cub with urgent sounds.